So this year, the teachers at the Alphabet Sangha have decided that we want to focus on queer AF. And AF gets to mean whatever we want it to mean. And for me, I think that I think about it in terms of collective liberation. And part of that process for me has always been about accountability and learning how to be an accountable person. And that stems from my deep desire to maintain and have deep friendships. And so today I want to talk about spiritual friendships, but I really want to focus on accountability, and I want to talk about how do we apologize and be accountable for our transgressions, because if we are going to create the kind of community that is inclusive and welcoming and that is healing and healthy, not only does the institution itself need to learn how to be accountable and self-reflective, but we also, as individual participants in these institutions, need to learn those skills as well. And I'll say that this actually, learning these skills, I didn't learn them as a child, and probably not in my early adulthood, but in learning them, it really shifted the intimacy in my relationships. It shifted the closeness that I felt with everybody in my life. And it really shifted how it was that I felt about my place in the world, which I hadn't expected. I'm going to start with a quote from one of my dear, dear friends. Lama Rod Owens said, "To be clear, going forward, I'm not interested in movements that prioritize unity. I'm interested in movements that prioritize and honor restoration, reconciliation, and reparations." And I think that sometimes as Buddhists, and particularly my white Buddhist compatriots, we sometimes seek unity and sacrifice real intimacy in the process of seeking unity. And so this idea of changing my focus into prioritizing and honoring restoration, reconciliation, and reparations in all of my relationships. Because I think that that's the way that we get to collective liberation. And Buddhism is about collective liberation. In the Upada Sutta, I'll just read what one translation is. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was living among the Sakyans. Now there's a Sakyan town called Sakkara, and there Venerable Ananda went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, Venerable Ananda said to the Blessed One, this is half of the holy life, Lord. Admirable friendship, admirable companionship, admirable camaraderie. Don't say that, Ananda. Don't say that. Admirable friendship, admirable companionship, admirable camaraderie is actually the whole of the holy life. When a monk has admirable people as friends, companions, and comrades, he can be expected to develop and pursue the noble eightfold path. And I think the way that we cultivate admirable companions, admirable comrades, admirable friendship is by being admirable. It's been my experience that like attracts like. I'm also one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and oftentimes when we're out and about in our habits, people will tell us how fabulous we look. And one of our sort of go-to lines for those moments are that we're merely a reflection of the person who's making that compliment to us. I think that as we begin to practice and start to notice ourselves and our impact in the world and make choices and all of these things, we start to learn what it means to be admirable. And I love that word, admirable, because it's not really about whether or not someone outside of this body finds me admirable, because I can't really control that. But every day I want to think of myself as admirable. I want to feel good about what I've done that day. I want to feel good about the contributions I've made that day. As I lay my head on my pillow at night, I want to feel like I did an okay job. To me, that's what it means to be admirable to myself. And there are occasions when I lay my head on my pillow at night and I think about my day and I realize, oh man, I really screwed that up. I spoke out of turn. Oh, I just really went after that person and they didn't deserve it. And I was frustrated or otherwise engaged. And I really gonna need to go and apologize. Now, luckily, sometimes I can think of that right after it happens, and I can sometimes make those apologies right on the spot. But oftentimes it's me the next day trying to connect with this person and making these apologies of owning my own responsibility in this fracture of this relationship. And I do this whether it's a total stranger or a dear friend. So what I learned about apologies are that they actually, a really good apology has 4 main components. The first is, it's very specific. I'm sorry for, and it's not about, oh, I'm sorry for being mean. That's not specific. It's also not, I'm sorry for the way I made you feel, because that, again, is deflection. It's specific to the behavior that I engaged in that hurt this person. I'm sorry I yelled at you. You didn't deserve that. I was frustrated and I took it out on you. I'm sorry for saying that nobody wants to be your friend. I'm sorry that I don't know, whatever it is, I'm sorry, but be very specific. Because when you're specific, what you're telling that other person is, I understand the reason that you're upset. And I understand the impact of my behavior and my choices on you as another person. And it's an amazing gift when someone is seen in that way. When their feelings and upset are taken seriously. Second is to elucidate why this was wrong. I'm sorry I yelled at you. You didn't deserve that. It was out of proportion for the conversation that we were having. I'm sorry I interrupted you. As a man, I want to be better at not interrupting women, and so I apologize for interrupting you. This explanation of why that something is wrong, I think it's the real meat of the matter, as it were, because it really takes us to look at the impact that our choices have made on our relationship. And really look at the commitments that we have about who we want to be in the world. And I think that sometimes, more than an apology, just knowing that someone understands what they did is what's more important than the actual apology. So it's not like, oh, I'm sorry, this was wrong because I got in trouble. It's more like, this is wrong because I hurt your feelings and I made you feel bad. The third step in this process is, in a positive way, affirming what you're going to do in the future to do it differently. Going back to my comment about, I apologize for interrupting you because as a woman, because you're a woman and I'm a man, that is socially ingrained, and it carries extra weight when I interrupt you, and I'm very sorry for that. In the future, I'm going to be more thoughtful when we're talking with each other. And I find that it's better for me when I'm making these apologies to leave out the try part, because that gives me wiggle room, right? It takes the heat off of me in a way that I don't really want. And like, it doesn't do any of the work necessary to keep in relationship with my friends. It's just a deflection. There's a big difference between I'll try to do better and I'll try not to interrupt you when we're talking. Actually, I just said it again, didn't I? Ingrained habits, right? Habits of mind. There's a difference between I'll try to do better and I'm not going to interrupt you when we're talking. It doesn't mean that I won't have to apologize again for making the same mistake. What it means is that I'm aware of, and I'm not letting myself off the hook for it. But I'm also not wallowing in this sort of shame and blame and horrible sort of, it's not self-flagellation, right? It's not, I'm not having an emotional reaction that you then need to take care of, right? We've all had those kinds of apologies, right? And the last piece is the really, really important piece. Actually ask them, will you forgive me? Do you forgive me? This opens up an opportunity for the person to participate in a way that, and sometimes they say no. And you just kind of got to eat it then. Okay. Or they might say, I can, but I really need you to take it seriously. So there might be asks in there. And sometimes it's good when you can ask someone, is there anything you need from me? Especially if it's something, a serious grievance, a serious sort of situation. Being able to say to this person, aside from this apology that I've just done, do you need anything from me in this regard? Because again, it starts to open up the conversation, and it's not one way now. And you're in dialogue. And you're finding out about your friend and what's important to them. You're finding out about what's important to this person. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what's most important. That's how we build the layers of relationship with each other. And I think that I want, my hope is that we in searching for collective liberation can begin to understand how to be with each other and hold each other accountable and hold ourselves accountable, but in ways that build relationship, right? That build into it this understanding that we're all trying for the same thing. You know, I've been a part of a number of Buddhist communities, and some communities do this better than others. Some teachers do this better than others. You know, it's hard work to really want to be in relationship. It's hard work to want to have multicultural interactions in real time. But we can develop these skills. We can become aware. You know, the great gift of meditation, you know, in Zen, it's often said, meditation, it's good for nothing. Because we're not meditating to seek out a goal. But the great gift of meditation is I get to see into myself and my choices and my behaviors a little more deeply. I can see more deeply into what's important to me. And I can see more deeply into how it is that I want to be in the world. It's also said that enlightenment is merely an appropriate response. And I love that, because what that means is that practice then is about how do I get closer to that appropriate response in each moment, right? And sometimes I can hit it really well, and other times I'm miles away. But I can begin to put tools in my tool chest that allow me to meet both of those moments. Because, you know, when I miss the mark, having a tool that lets me at least address that lets me at least acknowledge, oh yeah, I missed that mark. And I want to say, and I mentioned it briefly, but I want to say it again. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that the people that we're apologizing to will want to be in a relationship with us still. There are people in the world who don't want to talk to me, who actually leave spaces when I'm in the room. And it breaks my heart. And you just hold that. You let it break your heart. Because it reminds us, it reminds me, oh yeah, I'm just doing the best I can. And sometimes my actions have serious consequences for people, and they're hurt by me. There are also people in the world that I don't want to be in relationship with. And that's okay too. So I want to invite us to start thinking about ways that we can be accountable, that we can develop the skills necessary to be admirable, but not admirable to somebody out there. May we all find the ability to lay our head on our pillows at night and think, oh yeah, I did a good job today. Or if we can't do that, at least we can say, oh, okay, I can fix that. I can go and make amends there. I can make reparations. I can repair that breach, or try to. Thank you all for your attention, for your kindness, for your practice. And thank you all for being queer AF with me.